Well, I think, to begin with, I think we have to admit that we are all guilty. Guilty as charged. We're guilty because many of us ask the question many times while teaching. Does everybody understand? Is everything clear? Do you all get it? And you wait for a few seconds, get this one little answer from the middle of the room with 100 students, and you take that as a yes, and you keep going, and you move on. You delude yourself that this is an evidence of learning, and you keep going. But you have no idea if they really got it, they're embarrassed to speak, or what's going on. So if you are interested in knowing if your students are learning, how much, how well, what exactly they're learning, if you want to know exactly how to change your teaching style to improve the learning and improve your teaching, there is your answer. Classroom assessment techniques. Okay? So hopefully today we will be able to define what are classroom assessment CATs. We're going to call them CATs just to save time. And identify why they are important to use them. And hopefully we can apply some of those too. Well, I'm going to start with requesting 2 volunteers. I need 2 volunteers right here. No volunteers. OK, I'm going to pick. All right. Coming? You're the only one sitting there. Yeah. OK, we're going to go back to back. OK. What I'm going to do is give one of you a picture and ask the other person to draw according to a structure from the first person. OK? Here's what you need, a piece of paper. And here's what you need. There's your picture. OK, hold on a sec. Yep. OK, you need something to use it all. Well, here you go. And start drawing. Well, you have 3 minutes to understand, grasp this picture, and tell them clear instruction about how to do it. Go.
Okay, so it's sort of an abstract shape. I might start with something that looks like an animal wing. It maybe has sort of a real rounded flare at the tip. On the other end, on the other side, there are 2 almost circular cutouts of the edge of the animal wing. So maybe 300 degrees out of 360 degrees if you cut that out of the shape. Actually, you know what it looks like is one of those crazy protractor devices. Okay, never mind. Okay. And then inside of the shape, there are sort of 2, what I would approximate as triangles.
Okay, so let me back off. So there's a abstract shape, and there's a wing protruding at one of the ends of that, and the wing that's sort of 60 degrees out of the 360.
The circle, just
cut
an almost circle out of the edge of the bottom of the wing. There are 2 of them actually.
Okay. And then there's like 2 triangles.
And then there's 2 triangles. One that's oriented closer to where the wing would attach to a body or a fuselage, and then another triangle that's sort of out on the tail of the wing. And everything's all sort of curvy and swervy, so it's not straight lines, and that's the best description I can give you.
Okay. Okay. I'm doing something.
Okay.
It's probably considered different.
Yeah. Probably. My description's not very
Right, you're done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Let's get them all out here. Thank you for volunteering. I'll take that. Keep it. Well, thank you, David. I'll have this. And this is what we got. This is the original shape. This is what they draw.
Okay.
Right. We can put it this way. Yeah. Okay. This way. Maybe closer. Okay. Perfect. So that's exactly what happens when you try to present or talk about some complicated concepts in your classroom. You think that the student got it, but they most probably, not all of them, do. So how many of you are aware of Stephen Brookfield's book, Becoming a Critically Reflective Teacher, 1993? He discusses a very good idea that faculty should constantly test assumption about how the students are experiencing their teaching. Okay? And he's given us two ideas to do that. One is to experience a difficult learning situation. What does that mean? So you could go to learn a new language, something very difficult for you to understand. A place to go to where you don't get it. Because we're teaching something for years, so we get it. It's no problem for us. We assume that everybody else is the same. But for students, they probably hear it for the first time, and they don't get it. So put yourself in their shoes from time to time to understand how they feel that don't get it. Or do something else, maybe if you don't want to do that. Inquire how students are learning. Or assess the learning. Okay? So in 2 minutes, in the front of you, there's an index card. Let's assess how much you know. In 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, write or list 5 to 10 words related to assessment that you know. You're done? If you're done, turn to your neighbor and share what you got. See if you got the same thing. Work in pairs. Or threes if you have to. 2 or 3 if you have to, okay? Anything related to assessment that you ever experienced, like test, you know. Are we done? Okay, let's share some of these thoughts. Let's start from here. What you got? And try to listen so we don't have to repeat again the whatever term. Just tell me the word. I don't need explanation. Or whatever, yeah.
Test, quiz, questions, grades, project, paper, assignment, clicker, discussion.
Okay. What else? If you got anything different.
Say essay.
Comparison, evaluation,
Essay.
essays,
Portfolios.
portfolios. Mm-hmm. Summative, formative. Good.
Outcome.
Hmm?
Outcomes. learning
Outcomes. Hmm? Okay, that's good enough. Well, what we just did is called focused listing. Some activity you start with at the beginning of a class to see what the students know about the topic before you get started. Real quick, doesn't take more than 2-3 minutes. Well, let's do a quick clicker question. Just for the sake of using clickers, today's not about clickers, but clickers is a very good tool to use quick feedback, get feedback from the students, so let's just try for that. In front of you, there are a bunch of those. Press the yellow or orange button to turn it on, okay? And then take your pick from A, B, C, D, E, and then hit send. I'm going to start it. I didn't start it yet, so let's get started with one. Here you go. Okay, submit your answers. The worst thing you can do with clickers is just take attendance only. So if you're using clicker for just attendance, it's not a good idea. We got 19. I think we have like 24 people in the room. We're waiting. Somebody's having a problem with his, is that 21? Okay. One more? One more, I'm going to stop after one. Just give me one more. Okay. All right. Let's see. What does this look like? Every class. All right. Weekly. Some people never tried it before. We got a good variation here, but majority, like less than 50%, are already using it in every class, which is cool. Okay. So let's see how many of those you know. How many of those cats you use in your class? Look at these briefly, and if you recognize any of those, write how many in front of you in your index card? How many you use in your class, or you ever use in your class? Okay, let's see how we're going to do this. How many of you used 3 or less of those? 4 or less? 5? 6? 7? 7 or less. So including 7. 8? 9? 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, no, you're not counting. Okay, so at least 5 or 6 of those probably will be new for you. How many of you are familiar with Think, Pair, Share? Probably everybody. And 1 minute paper? Not very. And Money's Point? Okay, right. We have people probably know that. All right, what we're just doing is called actually background proof. So also at the beginning of the class, if you want to take it a little different, you can have your student write something, write a Quaker Say or a short brief assignment about what they're going to be talking about at the beginning of the class, which will help like focused listening to assess their prior knowledge, how much they know of learning in this process. And let the students, of course, know what you will cover. This is our topics today. This is what you're going to cover during this time of the class, and definitely it will also motivate them to think about the topic. Now, you get them focused, because everybody comes from home, running from another class, and their heads are full of ideas about something else. They are late to the class because maybe they were talking to somebody about the football game that we lost, or maybe they have a problem with their girlfriend or boyfriend, and then their mind is full of that stuff, and they're having so many problems. So you want to really focus their attention to what you're going to be talking about. And activities like these will do this trick. So let's now get to our topic. What is classroom assessment techniques? What does it mean? Well, can you think about it? Give me a definition. After all what we said, what are they?
Processes for evaluating existing knowledge or acquired knowledge
During class, exactly. Assessing knowledge during class. See how much they learn during class. Anything else? How do you describe those? Are they long? Are they short? Brief? Formative? Summative? What are they? Well, it's not. The only thing that's not right is they are not summative. They are brief, exactly, non-credited, effective, but they are formative. Everybody here knows the difference between formative and summative assessment? What's the difference? You shake your head yes. So now tell me what is. Well, formative assessment, it's like having somebody come into your classroom to observe you teach. They can do one of two things. Sit with you after the class, one-on-one, giving you some feedback about how to improve your teaching, and it stops right there, just between you and him. Or he's just observing you teaching, and he making a report, take it to your boss or your department chair, and sharing that with him to decide whether to hire you or fire you. The first one is formative. The second one is summative. Formative is for assessment, to increase quality. Summative is to make a judgment, take a decision about yes or no, give him a raise or fire him. So that's simply it is. Okay? Well, it's used, as Joe said, during, but it's all before, during, and after the learning process. It's not like testing, not like exams. It's not done at the end of the year. It's going to be too late for that. It's done during the class time, or even before the class starts, or after, at the end of the class, to improve the learning process during this class, to collect feedback. And of course, feedback is necessary to improve the students' learning and consequently improve your teaching accordingly. Well, there are also just-in-time feedback, exactly in the right time. It's not late at the end of the semester, as I said. Just-in-time feedback about the learning process. You collect so much information in a very short time with less work. You don't really have to go a paper and a pencil test and collect those and grade them and going back to this. You don't really have to do all that. It's done and done. Okay, right there in the class. Well, the student can now become better monitor of their own learning. How does that happen? Now you're showing them a couple tricks, how to focus list before class, how to probe your background knowledge, and there are so many others we will see now that students can learn how to actually monitor their own learning. And you will see more tricks of those, common tricks. Well, the students become less anonymous because now they talk to one another. They have to know somebody next to them, and they're sharing that and discussing and share with the whole class. They are not sitting there in the back of the auditorium. Nobody know what they're doing. Well, and of course, it's an evidence that instructor really cares, because this is it's not easy to do these. You will have to actually plan for it before you do it. It doesn't happen haphazardly. And of course, it's an evidence of learning. You can collect evidence that they are actually learning. Well, here's another way to do it. Concept maps. Probably many of you are aware of it. You can use concept maps to, I'm putting a definition for cats with a concept map. You can, after explaining a certain concept, you can ask a student to put it in a map like this, which will clarify to you if they really got it or not. Or you can use it as a test also in class by hiding some of the components, like this right there. What can I put here? Or here, 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 here. So cats are what? They are formative, non-credited. Well, actually, first, cats are classroom activities. They are brief, formative, non-credit. When they're done, before, during, after class, and to improve students' learning, and they include focus listing, background knowledge probe, and concept maps. Pretty easy. But if they can do it, that will clarify to you if they really got it. It's always good to know they got it. Mark Twain, an old American author, humorist, once said, assuming is good, but finding out is better. So you have to find out. Don't assume they got it. Well, there are so many assumptions about why we should use cats. I just selected a couple of those. That quality of learning equals quality of teaching. Well, look at this picture closely. What do you see there? What does it say in the top? Teach, and in the bottom saying learn. So it's a reflection. Okay? It's completely a reflection. What you see is what you get. Okay. So we have to have quality of teaching in order to get quality learning. If you look at this cartoon, read it briefly. I taught this tribe how to whistle. Okay? Well, I don't hear him whistling. Well, I said I taught him. I did not say he learned it. So, what this tells you? We're assessment here. Sure. Exactly. So the whistling is the proof of learning. Whistling is the assessment part. So assessment, formative or summative, is the way to distinguish between teaching and learning. You could teach forever. Nobody's learning anything. So are you really teaching? That's the question. Well, the other assumption that early and frequent feedback improves learning. This is one of the facts about human learning. The earlier the better, the more frequent, the better it does. And there is actually a feedback loop between students' feedback and faculty feedback. So you collect feedback from your students, you adjust your teaching methods, and you assess again, and you collect feedback again. You give them feedback, and you receive feedback. And it's a loop, ongoing. Actually, one of the attributes of the most effective teachers is that, if you don't remember anything about excellent teacher or effective teacher, the only thing you remember is they have ongoing evaluation or monitoring of a student's learning. And they keep adjusting accordingly. They collect feedback and adjust their learning. That's the only thing you can if you want to be an excellent teacher. There are so many attributes other than those, but this one is probably the most effective one. Well, let's do another one. You got your clickers? Are you ready? Here you go. This is only to demonstrate the use of clickers. This is not actually the most effective way to use clickers, but just to know about use of clicker in class. Okay, let's see. I'm sure everybody wants to go home by now. Okay, we got people who want to go home. I think somebody already went home, so. All right. Good. Well, let's see. In your own words, now explain to the person next to you. I don't want you to write it down. Just explain to the person next to you what cats mean. If this person is a 10-year-old kid, how do you explain this to them? In a very simple way. Yeah, work in pairs. Okay. Anybody wants to share? Well, you don't want to share, huh? This is called directed paraphrasing. After you explain a concept, you ask students to explain it to somebody else in their own words. And that's also proof of understanding, that they got it. So if they can explain it, and you can, of course, share with the other class members, see what they said, make sure they really got it right. You can, if this even in a big classroom, you can select just a few. You don't have to really hear from everybody, but at least use that one method. It's not the only method to see what's going on. Well, there's another method, but it's more elaborate, a little more complicated, which is called one-sentence summary. Okay? That, let's see a video first before. Actually, we can see that video about one-sentence summary before we can try it. Let's see.
In most college classes, instructors expect students to read texts, or view multimedia, or listen to audio materials. But how can you tell whether students understand the materials you've assigned? One way to gauge students' understanding is by asking them to write a one-sentence summary. These summaries require students to sift through a long sample of writing, a speech, or a video, and then pull out the most important elements. Then, students put those elements back together to create something new, a concise and complete summary in the student's own words. So, how can you help your students write a one-sentence summary? Teach them how to use prompt questions, such as who, does what, to whom, when, where, why, and how, to identify the important points. By asking students to answer these questions, you get them to focus on what really matters, rather than unimportant details. Let's say you're teaching a literature course, and your students are reading Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Many students have heard of the love story, but you want to know how well they understand Shakespeare's language and the action in the play, especially in the well-known Act 2, Scene 2.
But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Be not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. It is my lady, oh, it is my love, oh, that she knew she were.
Sometimes students can pull answers directly from the text they're reading, but often they have to examine the context of the material to be able to answer the questions. The first time you assign a one-sentence summary, start by inviting students to answer the prompt questions in class or in an online discussion. Have students work in groups to critique each other's summaries.
Romeo tells Juliet to poison her jealous maid on the balcony so the maid becomes sick and green.
No way. Romeo asks Juliet's smoking hot maid to let him watch through the broken balcony window as Juliet gets naked at sunrise after drinking too much at the ball.
Notice which questions are easy to answer and which they struggle with. Encourage them to talk through the difficult questions. Look for patterns in your students' summaries, noting where they are strong and where they could be improved, and share your observations with the students. By giving and getting feedback, students learn to think critically about the material, and they get practice in defending their own viewpoint and graciously accepting another student's interpretation. After they've settled on a response for each prompt question, ask students to write their one-sentence summaries of the passage, adding only enough extra information to make a coherent statement in their own words.
You're kidding, right? Romeo sees Juliet on her balcony at dawn after the ball, and because he loves her, he uses metaphor to compare her brilliant beauty to the sun as she transforms the night into day.
With practice and good feedback from you and their peers, students will be able to write a solid one-sentence summary that demonstrates their understanding.
Okay. So let's write one-sentence summary about cats. Anybody wants to share? Okay, share with your partner first. Share with your parent, your partner, your neighbor. No? You feel more comfortable now to share with other people? Okay. Let's hear from somebody here. Oh? You guys want to share?
Okay. There are brief interactive activities by the teacher given to the students to assess learning and get feedback during class using the techniques that are being.
Okay. During and before and after. That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's as simple as that. So, yeah, always remember these prompts. They're really very useful. And when I ask somebody to share, people hesitate. They don't want to share because they don't feel comfortable talking in front of everybody else, or they're not sure if the answer is correct. So when you have them share with somebody next to them, they start to thinking, well, he's got the right answer the same as I am, so maybe we are correct, so I can talk. So talking in private actually encourages a lot talking in public, particularly if your students know one another. So, okay, another one here. Now, this is very unique. At the end of your class, after explaining the whole concept, if you want to put a test question about this topic, what would that question be? It doesn't have to be very complicated. I can give you some stems like this. They can help. But you can make a very simple one. Just write a test question, a simple one about cats, the techniques, the timing, the usefulness, the assumptions. No, I want you to write a question, actually. Go ahead and write it down. Put it on the paper. Or if you have it in your head, that's fine. Because there is a next step for that. So you have to remember what that question is. Everybody got a question? Okay, here is the tricky part. Now, turn to your neighbor, ask him that question, get his answer, and then listen to his question and answer it. You get this? We have two people now, everyone with a question. You ask your question, get your answer from your neighbor, and listen to his question and answer it. And I'm going to pick some randomly here. Okay, let's hear some questions and some answers.
When are cats most effective and why?
Okay, who answered that?
Before, during, and after the class, because that's when the learning is supposed to be occurring.
Before, during, and after. Good. And the other question was?
I had a couple. I've decided I don't really like any of them, though. I think I like something more along the lines of giving some examples of CATS techniques.
Okay.
But he didn't answer that one.
Okay, well, that's a very nice technique actually at the end of the class. They can actually write their questions and their answers for the other question, and you collect those as pairs and compare them. So it's a probably a very effective way to do it. And that's, of course, it's called question and answer pairs. Or sometimes they call it reciprocal questions or learning cells. The students can do this on their own after working in groups. And somebody asks a question, and somebody else answers that, even outside of the classroom. So it's called a learning cell sometimes. All right, one more. I have an exercise for you where I'm going to give you a blank or outline of the techniques we just talked about. Some of them probably didn't talk about. And you're going to have to fill the blanks. Is that easy? Okay, I'm going to make it a little easier. I give you the fillings of these cells, and you just put them in the right place. Okay, is that easier? Okay. Now, another question. Do you need the hard way or the easy way? Do you want to do 12 of them or just 6 of them? That's what I thought. Okay. All right. We will have groups here, maybe of 2. You can work in 2. And start thinking about answering these, maybe one of these. And here you go, the other group. Everybody got one? Okay. I'll give you the pieces of the puzzle. So these are group A and B. Your group A, B. Your group, what is your group? This is A. You need to work with somebody. Your group, you are 2, you're B. You're going to work by yourself? Fine. You're an A. You need only one per 2 people. You're a B. You're a B or an A? A B, okay. And you are, guys, a B. You are A. Okay, you got like 5 minutes to finish this. Let's just sit on one thing. Oh, by the way, don't try to match the size of the puzzle to the space, because they are not going to match. I intentionally variated the size of the squares, so. Is everybody done? Did you check your answers? Everything correct? 100%. Okay, cool. We call this an empty outline. Sometimes if you have a lecture, you can provide the students with just the outline, and they start filling the spaces as you go or at the end of the lecture to make sure they can fill it out, and they can probably submit it for brief credit or not. And you can give them the full sheet later on. They can check their answers. Does everybody have one of those? This is a front and back. This is from Anglo and Cross Classroom Assessment Techniques, 1993, and it's full of those techniques. I just selected the ones that could probably very easily applied in class. We covered some of those, and probably some we did not cover yet, or maybe not today, but it's very simple and easy to use. One of those interesting ones is called approximate analogy. So if I tell you that classroom assessment technique to a teacher is dots as to what? Let me write it up. I don't have a marker here. But so it's to make an analogy for the concept you're teaching. So catch to a teacher is like what to what, or to who?
It's like bait to a fisherman. Person.
Well, close. Yeah, so you get something. What else it could be? Like somebody from nursing or a doctor. What would it be?
Like a timing light to a mechanic.
What?
A timing light to a mechanic. It's
Uh-huh.
a tool that lets a mechanic determine whether the engine's in
Diagnostic.
ignition.
Diagnostic, can you mention? A treatment for a patient, or maybe getting history from the patient so you can decide from the patient what was exactly the problem. You can fix it. Yes. What else? What else it could be?
Taste testing to a chef.
Uh-huh. Exactly. This is formative, you know? Exactly. Perfect example. Testing for a chef, he tests the food before he presents it to the client or the customer. He can say, needs more salt, less salt. He can fix it. But once it goes to the customer, it becomes summative. The customer will say good or bad, and that's it. So yeah, excellent. What else? From your own discipline. But from chemistry, physics? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think we're getting the idea. So now we want to think of an application in your own discipline. How you plan to use this, when, and how, and what. In your own classroom lecture, something you're already teaching. What are you going to do exactly next class if you're willing to experiment with this? Pick a lecture, and exactly what are you going to do? After I teach a section on whatever, I will what?
One sentence summary of terminology used in finance.
Okay. All right. What else? Come on. What did we cover so far? We had think per share, everybody know that. We had focus listing before class or beginning of a class. We had background knowledge probe before we start. What else? Come on. We had concept maps.
Directed paraphrasing.
Directed paraphrasing.
Question and answer pairs. Empty outline.
Okay. Any of those, what are you going to do? Think of an application in your own field.
I'm going to teach biostatistics, so I want to know the attitude of the students before teaching the classes that they might think, oh, it's all boring and complicated.
Exactly. Good. Yeah. I'm assessing in a class called Seminar in College Teaching. I'm not sure if somebody here attending this class. It's Higher Ed 8510. And in the first day of class, what we do is we give them a list of terminology that we're going to cover during the whole semester. And we ask them, how much do you know? I know it very well. I don't know it. I've heard of it. I've never heard of it. And we use this as a pre-test for knowledge probing. And based on that, probably we can tweak our course a little. If everybody knows one thing, probably don't need to cover it again. So we can tweak it a little to do exactly what they are after. So in your class, think of a practical application for statistics. How can they apply this in their own world, the students I'm talking about? In nursing, in engineering, how they can apply this to the real world. Whatever you taught now. Ask them to bring an application for the concept you've just given to them. It's called application cards. That's what they call it. So think of application. If they can figure out how to apply this concept, that means they got it. Okay, I'm sure all of you know that 2-minute paper, right? So at the end of the class time, you ask them, what did they learn today? Write 1 or 2 or 3 points of the main points they have learned during this class today. And what questions still remain unanswered. And you collect those cards. You don't have to put names on them. And probably, because of the virtue of the technology now, you can do this online. easily. Give them a website or a Qualtrics survey, a little link, go to that, answer these questions. And you collect those, and instead of having to read through piles and piles of index cards, and you always use an index card, by the way, for this activity. You don't want them to fill you 2 pages, because you have to read those. And in the next class, you have to address their concerns. If there is something common everybody had a problem with, you should, at the beginning of the next class, address this issue. So it's a quick way to do it. Still formative, no credit. So what now? What points are still unclear about cats? Mm-hmm.
I had a question about the focus listing because it's a topic that they are completely unfamiliar with.
Mm-hmm.
I would think relate anything to it.
Okay. Well, the question is, if the topic is unfamiliar to the students, is it fair to ask them about focus listing? List anything related to it? What do you think? Should I ask the students about a topic they've never heard of before?
If you're trying to determine what the background of the class is, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll give you an idea of where to direct your lectures to, what level.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But you think it's not appropriate to ask? Do you think somebody knows nothing about the topic you're going to address? Give me an example of that topic. That
I don't know, let's say generalized.
Any topic from your feet probably we're not aware of, but.
Let's say generalized additive models.
Oh, sorry?
Generalized additive models.
Generalized additive
Say that's the topic.
models. This is in statistics? Or
Yeah, like the statistics.
anybody knows anything about that? Additive model. So it has something with addition, subtractions. They will come up with some. By the way, don't underestimate the background knowledge of your students. They know something, and you will be surprised how much they know. But they don't show it to us because we always ask the question, does everybody have a question? And nobody answers. Do you know what is it? Nobody answers. They're quiet. They don't want to show what they know. But once you stir them up, you'll be surprised how much they know. Try it. Give it a try experiment, see if they know it or not. You're talking about statistic class, and you're talking about students in a statistic class. So it's not completely foreigner from that field.
Sometimes, concerning your question, sometimes the additive model is talking about. Some students must have done something related to that, but that's the question of change of tense.
Mm-hmm.
Like today, when I wanted to introduce functions in my class, so I asked my student, did you do anything like relations in high school? They said no. But I said they did.
Yeah.
So when I introduced some concepts, something that we did in high school, they said, "Wow, that's the relation." But then it wasn't the relation they called it.
Exactly. It's at the back of their mind. They know it, but they probably don't know they know. So once you start digging a little bit, removing the dust from their brains, it will show up. So don't underestimate the background knowledge. I was really surprised many times with the amount of information the students know already about something I was not expecting to come up with all this information. So, but it's important to know what they know before you get started. Otherwise, if everybody knows what you're talking about, it's just a waste of time. So anything is still unclear. Are cats good ones you can use in class? Is there any problem with it? What do you think the problem would be from faculty perspective and students' perspective if they want to apply cats? What would be a minus, a con for doing cats? Is there any? Number of students can be an impeding problem.
You have a short class, the amount of time you take.
Amount of time you take in class in 50 minutes? Do you think it's going to take much of the class time? Okay, how about like think per share? How much time that would take? Probably 3-4 minutes. There are some, you can tweak the activity. You don't have to really follow the book as it is. You can change it a little bit to fit, but you have to know if they're learning or not. What is the value of talking for 50 minutes if nobody's listening? Our job is to impart knowledge or to make students learn. You have to think about the learning part. Make sure they're learning. Otherwise, Now, covering content is not always should be the goal. I have a content to cover, and I have not time enough to cover all that. But you can use other ways. It's not the time for it now to introduce content other than doing it yourself. But it's not the time now. Maybe in another workshop. So that's the 1 minute paper. Any other problems? It's called 1 minute, but sometimes it goes up to like 5-6 minutes. So it's not always just 1 minute, but it could be more. Well, just some tips for starting. If you're going to start doing this, you got to start small. Don't get too excited and apply everything in one class. Start with a focus. Don't do it like we're doing here. What we're doing here is a demo. Be careful with that. We don't want to apply everything in one class. This is a demonstration for how to do it. It's not the way you do it. So pick whatever technique you want. Start very small. And tell students what you're doing. Tell them I'm going to do this because it has a value of giving me feedback. Explain what you're doing. Tell them what you're doing. Otherwise, sometimes they're baffled, thinking they're not knowing what you're doing, and it's in the middle of the semester, and you come up with this technique. What is he doing? We've been here sitting for the last 7 weeks, sitting and getting. We're doing nothing else but receiving information, and now you're asking us to do something. What is that for? So, and of course, you have to plan. Otherwise, it's not like I have nothing to do today. I'm running out of time, so let's do some activity. Everybody write down a summary or whatever, And you have to have what we call a lesson plan and exactly know what's the objective, the goal of your lesson, and how that relates to your goal. It's not just randomly done. You have to know exactly where you're going to use it, at what time, and how long. For any class, for anything, always use an activity plan or a lesson plan so you can keep track of what you're doing and when you're going to do it. And if you're doing it for more than one time, it's going to be very useful. Next time you're doing this, okay, take out that sheet. Okay, I'm going to do this today. I don't really have to think every time I go to class, what am I doing today? And of course, implement it, collect some feedback, and follow, of course, the loop. See if you really need to change anything in your teaching so you could respond to the students' understanding. I could change a little bit. Also, you can advise students to study a little bit differently, if that's possible. And of course, respond to it. Well, this is the conclusion of that. Today, we talked about classroom assessment techniques, why they're used, because you need to collect feedback about the students' learning, make sure they're literally learning something to improve the learning, improve the teaching. There are so many techniques we use. Let's hear some of you saying some of those. Give me one. Empty outline. Muddy's point. We didn't use that today, but Muddy's point is similar to 1 minute paper, except that it focuses on what was the most difficult thingy that you could not understand today. At the end of the lecture, you could do that. Okay? 1 minute paper. Question and answer pairs. Think, pair, share. One sentence summary. What else? You got the list of all those actually now. Sorry? Directed paraphrasing. Okay, and there are more and more. There are so much more in there actually than you can compare. And this is a reference used for this called Classroom Assessment Techniques. It's a very valuable source for information. We have it in the Biggio library if you need to use it. And I'm sure it's going to be, there is a copy of that in the Auburn library too. Well, with this, I conclude, and I just want you to do some evaluation for this. So I'm going to give you some evaluation sheet. If you don't have any questions, go ahead and ask them. If not, just try to fill these evaluation sheets. Oops. So many.